Your sister's friends will spend Christmas here, Mom said, sipping tea like she was granting me the honor of being her unpaid staff. It's only 25 people. We need you to cook, clean, and bow.
Bow.
That word hung there, floating in peppermint air like steam off her mug. Hi, I'm Rachel Elwood, 28, youngest daughter, family ghost, and apparently, holiday help. I'd come home out of courtesy. 1 week off from my job, flying home to the Midwest out of obligation, not warmth. Your sister's having a hard year, Mom added. Let her enjoy herself. You're strong. You'll manage. I smiled, nodded, and said nothing, because I already had my flight booked. Florida. 3 nights. Ocean breeze. Paid in full with a Christmas bonus they didn't know I got, because they never ask. That night, I packed my bag quietly. I pre-scheduled a grocery delivery to their address with exactly 1 item, a single stick of butter, just for irony. Then I left before dawn. No note, no drama, just silence. By noon, I was lying poolside under a pale December sun, sipping cold brew and listening to seagulls fight over French fries. My phone exploded at 4:13 p.m. First, Mom, where are you? Then, you think this is funny? The guests are arriving. There's nothing here. But the real surprise? It wasn't the empty kitchen. It was the knock that came an hour later, to their door, while they were still scrambling. And it wasn't me. It was someone they hadn't seen in 4 years. Can we help you? Mom asked, still in her apron, hair frizzing from kitchen panic. The man at the door smiled. I'm here for dinner, he said calmly. Rachel invited me. He stepped in before she could protest. Charcoal sweater, neat beard, calm like a bomb. My sister, Claire, dropped a wine glass when she saw him. Because it was James, my ex. The one they hated. The one they told me to leave because you can do better and he'll never fit into our family. What they didn't know, he had. Into mine. James and I stayed close. He knew exactly what Christmas at the Elwood house meant for me. Servitude in exchange for silence. When I told him I'd finally booked the Florida trip, he laughed and said, Want me to deliver your absence personally? I hadn't said yes, but I hadn't said no either. So he showed up, and the moment he stepped into that overcrowded, over-decorated living room and pulled out a foil-covered tray of roasted vegetables, my mom's jaw locked tight. Rachel said you might need a few dishes, he said to the room. So I brought these. Oh, and I cater the rest. He waved toward the driveway. A van pulled up. Out came staff. Platters. He'd hired an actual holiday catering service. Guests applauded. Claire turned red. My mom? She sat down like the air had gone out of her lungs. Because for once, her show wasn't hers to direct. And the headliner was someone she'd rejected. The living room was so quiet you could hear the heat vents hum. James stood there like a calm storm, confident, courteous, and absolutely intentional. I wasn't sure if Rachel would make it, he continued, but she told me what was expected. So, I figured I'd help make it memorable. Claire muttered, You're joking, right? He turned to her. Still dramatic, I see. Claire looked at Mom, waiting for her to do something. But Mom didn't speak. She was staring at the servers now unpacking warm trays in her kitchen, setting real plates on her china. James leaned toward her gently. Don't worry, he said. It's all organic and kosher, just like you like it. That burned. Because I remembered the years she made me throw away my stuffing because it wasn't prepared properly. Meanwhile, Claire's store-bought pie was called charming. They'd built a hierarchy where I was the utility and Claire was the decoration. Not this year. This year, I was 1,200 miles away watching the sun set behind a pier. And James? He was the ghost of their expectations. Tall, smiling, and completely unfazed by their discomfort. One guest, a neighbor, raised a glass. Honestly, this is the best Christmas setup we've seen here in years. Laughter. Applause. Mom forced a smile. Claire fake laughed. But James? He turned, looked right into the family portrait above the fireplace, then at my mom, and said, You know it's funny. Sometimes the one you push out ends up feeding the whole room. Mom finally stood up. Okay, she said tightly, clutching her pearls like they were a lifeline. This isn't funny anymore. James tilted his head. Who said it was? Claire crossed her arms. Why are you really here, James? Looking for attention? He didn't even blink.
No.
Just giving your guests what your mother asked for.
Food.
Warmth. And a little humility. The room shifted. One of Claire's friends whispered, Wait, isn't that Rachel's ex? Another muttered, This food is incredible. James smiled. Glad you like it. Rachel picked the menu. She remembered everyone's preferences, including the vegan cousin you always forget. Claire flushed. Mom's mouth opened and closed, searching for the usual control. But her lines weren't landing tonight. The script had changed. I don't understand what's going on, she muttered. Oh, I'll explain, James said, voice soft but direct. Rachel spent every Christmas serving this house like a ghost. You noticed when your wine ran out, but not when she ran herself into exhaustion. He stepped forward, lowering his voice.
She left.
You didn't notice. She sent one text this morning. Let them feel the weight. He looked at the stunned faces around the room. This is the weight. Silence. Until someone at the back clapped. Then another.
And another.
A slow, awkward ripple of applause that wasn't just for the food. It was for the absence finally being seen. James took a breath. Enjoy the meal. Then he pulled out his phone, stepped aside, and FaceTimed me. Hey, Ratch, he grinned. Want to see your mom's face? The camera flipped. I saw my mother's face on screen, stone white, jaw tense, surrounded by guests trying not to look directly at the implosion. I smiled.
Sunglasses on.
Drink in hand. The ocean behind me. Hi, Mom, I said, sweet as sugar. How's the party? She blinked like she'd seen a ghost. Rachel, she said flatly. What is this? This, I said, is what happens when you forget your daughter isn't your maid. James laughed quietly beside her. Claire stormed off screen. Someone whispered, Well, this is awkward, followed by the sound of a wine glass being very deliberately sipped. I open my home to you, Mom hissed. No, I said. You assigned me duties. Cook, clean, and bow. You weren't inviting me to Christmas. You were giving me a job description. I didn't mean it like that. You always mean it like that, I said, my voice calm but finally clear. Every year it's Claire's friends, Claire's music, Claire's schedule. You don't even ask if I'm okay. You just assume I'll mop up the glitter. She went silent. Dad stepped into frame, finally. He looked tired. You look happy, Rachel. I am. He nodded once. Then stay that way. Before Mom could respond, I smiled wider. I left a little something for you, by the way. Check the fridge. James, now grinning like he knew exactly what was coming, walked over and opened it. And there, front and center, was a sheet cake. Icing message in red script. You should have asked who is cooking before sending the guest list.
Gasps.
Actual gasps. One of Claire's friends burst out laughing and covered her mouth. Someone else snapped a picture of the cake. James angled the phone so I could see it clearly, and wow, it turned out perfect. Bold red icing on white fondant, just like I'd requested. Mom looked like the cake had personally insulted her ancestors. She turned to James. You planned this whole thing with her? Behind our backs. He didn't flinch. No, for her. After everything you've done, the least I could do was deliver the message. Claire came back into the room, saw the cake and groaned. You're so dramatic, Rachel. You could have just said no. I did, I said through the phone. Every year. Quietly. You just didn't hear it over the sound of your own birthday playlist at Christmas. The guests were now pretending to nibble appetizers while watching the whole thing like live theater. The room had split, some stunned into silence, others silently cheering me on. A few even looked relieved that someone had finally said what they couldn't. Mom finally snapped. I hope you're proud of yourself. I leaned closer to the camera. Mom, for once, I really am. James laughed. Best Christmas party I've ever attended. He raised a glass to the camera. To Rachel, the only Elwood with the courage to RSVP no and mean it. The screen froze for a second before ending the call, and as I leaned back in my lounge chair, I whispered, "Merry Christmas" to me. The next morning, I woke up to 16 missed messages. Most were from Claire. "You humiliated us." "Mom didn't sleep." "You've always been jealous." "I hope you're happy now." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, believe me, I did, but because I'd finally learned silence was louder. James sent a selfie from the aftermath, him holding a fork, standing next to an empty buffet table. The cake? Obliterated. Guests? Fed and gone. The caption read, "You really fed them in every way." I laughed so hard, I nearly spilled my coffee. Mid-scroll, a new message came in. "Dad." Just one line. "You were right. I should have said something a long time ago." That one I saved. Later that afternoon, I got a Venmo notification. $500. From James. Note. Emotional labor. Plus, the cake was worth it. I sent back $1 with a wink emoji. And then I turned off my phone. I walked the boardwalk alone. Watched kids chase waves. Watched couples take bad selfies in good light. The sun was warm, and for once, I wasn't anyone's background character. I was the main event of my own life. And no one was assigning me chores, asking me to shrink, or calling me selfish for wanting peace. At dinner, I ordered dessert first. Because I could. Because I earned it. Because maybe the biggest plot twist of all is when the forgotten daughter learns how to make herself unforgettable and doesn't even need to return to prove it. New Year's came with no invitation, no group text, no family call, not even one of Mom's usual guilt-laced "Are you coming home this year?" or "Staying selfish?" messages. It was quiet, deliciously, intentionally quiet. I hosted a beach bonfire with friends from college. No drama, no dress codes, just laughter, barefoot dancing, and stories told under fireworks. At midnight, I looked up at the sky, whispered "thank you," and meant it. Because this time last year, I was in their kitchen peeling potatoes. This year, I was free. On January 2nd, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew the penmanship instantly. It was from Mom. "I didn't raise you to be cruel, Rachel. But maybe I didn't raise you to be seen either. I don't know when I started mistaking your silence for consent, or when I began believing that love was earned through service. But this Christmas, I saw it. I saw you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day I'll deserve an invitation, not to a party, but back into your life." I read it twice, then folded it gently and placed it in a drawer. Not ready to answer, not ready to return, but ready to release it. Because this chapter wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. And that little girl who used to serve in silence, she'd finally served herself joy.